Hi, everyone. We wanted to dedicate this week to talking through Basilica because we started Basilica because we believe that no one has nailed compute on Bittensor, and it was our first foray into it. Now, 3 months later, we've learned lessons and decided on a better way forward. Initially, we went with what we thought was the process approximation, which was Liam, and we went with that architecture. Now, we have found that architecture to be severely limiting in what our eventual goals were, and it made us over-index on immediate problems that were not important to our final destination. It's a low-margin business. The number one cardinal sin we commit when we do decentralized compute is you need to decide who do you want to provide that compute. Do you want it to be someone that arbitrages and someone that owns the good? Now, this is not just unique to Bittensor. It's almost everywhere. Take, for example, the price of a B200. Let's say DataCrunch gives it up for $3.80 an hour. Most compute networks ended up overpaying a middleman between DataCrunch and who owns the supply. That is a business that can only break even. So what do we need to do? We need to either onboard data centers. Now, data centers are very tricky. At least the good ones are very tricky. First of all, the space is still too new for anyone to live with having Tau on their books. You understand? So we went back to the drawing board and thought, okay, how do we invert this problem? What do we have? We have miners. We have code. How can we use this system? Liam, Basilica, everywhere. We are overpaying miners to arbitrage compute. You'd never break even doing this approach. So we thought, okay, how do we invert this on its head? How do we make this more virtuous? And how do we still leverage the tools that Bittensor gives us to offer the best compute network in the world? So here's the take on it. Going forward, and the miner's job is not just to provide compute that's idle. It is to provide compute at a cost that we cannot get it from. Because otherwise, why do we have miners at the compute level? What do the miners do? They don't go resell compute. That is not the alpha. That's not what we want to pay people for. We want to pay people for providing compute at the most competitive rate. So we transform our incentive landscape from something that's just, hey, give me your computers. Go out there. Give me the best prices. Go broker deals to unlock the cheapest and the best compute ever. So we believe this directly turns miners from just arbitrageurs to active asset managers, so active participants in the network, which ultimately leads to better service levels, better availability. And at the end of the day, we need to understand like Bittensor is expressive enough to express a multitude of incentive mechanisms. And sometimes you need to look from afar and like, are we all doing this wrong? Why are we always overpaying? We don't want to do this anymore. So we believe this. So the way it's going to work is we're going to have two APIs. We're going to have two marketplaces, a community marketplace, which is miner provided compute, and a provider marketplace, which is for providers that we have sourced this compute from. Now, if a miner cannot beat these prices and this quality, why are they earning? Because, at its detail and now TauFlow require the huge burden of fiscal discipline on those of us managing subnets. So what does this mean for us? It means that that's the first part. And second, we're not paying anyone for idle compute. You won't get anything for just, parking your compute there because that is just, it's not productive to us, and no other company in the world, no other Web2 company in the world does it. There's an argument to be made that does help us build inventory, but there's always going to be compute on the network. We're just not going to pay miners to turn up and just park their compute there. It's a waste of money. So what does this do? Miners will be paid directly in Tau after we take a cut. The only downward sell pressure we have is root prop, which is diminishing and will be easier to bridge from our cut. What happens to the cut? We will give about 90% to the miners and 10% will be retained to buy back our token. So We're starting to see what the flywheel looks like, and it's just really realizable. The self-pressure from operations vanishes because we are no longer using pay now with that token. The token is still central, but we look at this as an accumulation phase because eventually we foresee where Basilica has such a ridiculous token name. I think it's called Nihu, or like let's call it our alpha token, becomes the unit for compute where people start to transact in that. But we're not there yet. If we want to grow, should we spend alpha as terms of customer acquisition? But we don't need to do this. And even if we do this, it should be on the customer side, not the miner side. Compute networks in their current form, they have the lowest burden of work for miners. So if they really want to be part of the platform, they should get us. Why am I paying you to get me something I can get off the Shadeform API? It behooves any intelligence, but there's still a space to use crypto economic engines, drive better outcome. And in this first instance, it's, you know what, give me a better price, get me better inventory. If you can get me better inventory, then we will take your inventory. So by pitching it direct, it's what we do in almost everything in Bittensor. We try to pit the decentralized and centralized. This is what we hope for. We hope for maybe tier 3, tier 4 data centers. Be like, okay, this is a game we're playing. We can get distribution. Let's play this. There's a lot to contend for the platform in terms of efficiency because we run very heavy verification for miner provided compute. But from a cost perspective, there would always be compute. So we foresee the margins on rental at most are 15%, but all of that from our side is going to be used to buy back our token. So when Basilica launches, it makes life harder for miners, but everyone has to become a lot more efficient, and that's the road we're going to have to go down. Which leads to our next topic. Now, again, it's architecture. Eventually, Basilica is going to provide more than compute. Our current architecture of using bare pods on VMs wasn't expressive enough. So we started working with a top subnet to realize this more than compute vision, and it all fell apart. So Evan, let me bring him on stage, has been working on helping us, as taking the charge on that and rewriting a lot of the architecture allows us to instantly spin up instances. And when we launch, we'll be able to execute arbitrary payloads. What does this mean? You can offload your evaluation, offload your training, offload your inference, anything you want. We will become a job platform. That's very important in realizing our mission. The only way to make money as a compute platform is to make sure that the sum of the parts are greater than the whole. And the only way you can do that is selling stuff like PaaS. So I'm looking forward to the PaaS platform. So Evan, do you want to talk more about the work you've been doing to, I mean, you can tell them everything. Don't tell them what we're working with, but tell them how the new architecture helps.
Sure. I think I said pretty much everything on the last TGIF podcast. The aim of Basilica has always been to bring the compute closer to where the code is generated and even closer to the user. Rental was never the end goal, to be honest. It was just the first feature we had to get by the door. This made us understand the economics. Now, the next phase is how we shard the compute in a such way whereby we always utilize the hardware that we have. So right now, when the server is rented and available in the network, even if it's rented by the user, it's not fully utilized unless the user is doing something on production and continuous, things like that. But it's not fully utilized, right? The network is paying the full amount. The user is paying the full amount. At the end of the day, we are having underutilized compute. So the idea is to be able to have a compute cluster that the user just says, you know what, just execute that and bring me the result. Now, this execution can be similar to inference or function as a service operations, where users are giving us pre-templated images or images that are being built on the fly and say, hey, I just built this. Can you please go and execute it quickly? And Basilica will go and do the functional computation that they need. You won't be charged for more than that. Obviously, you'll be charged, for the service that you're having, for the time that you were keeping the network occupied. That's it, right? This is optimal for us. Basilica wise, because maybe with one server you can utilize more compute and has the economies of scale that we are aiming to go forward, and also for the user, because for example they might be having an application in a CPU server that is just doing its own kind of stuff, and for 10% of the time they just need a GPU. They don't need a GPU for 1 hour, they just need it for 10 minutes. For those 10 minutes, they can call the Basilica API, doing the heavy GPU computation, and then, as I said, they'll continue on. Maybe they will be having this CPU computation on Basilica as well, which in our case, it will be, a great thrill for us, but maybe not. Maybe they have it on AWS and Basilica is giving them this GPU price benefit, for example. Going down the line, you will see more features such as the data that you are uploading during this computation will have a persistence nature, so you won't have to re-download it, sync it. And then after that, you will see more of a clustering kind of happening. So you'll be able to say, run this in a 16 GPU scale rather than 8, which pretty much everybody is bound right now. But on the immediate, you will see serverless functions, GPU functions that are coming in.
Yeah, it's good to know. So what does this give us? This gives us expressiveness, because it's where we want to go. And it's where we see a developer wants to calculate a protein, you want to do a video job, you want to calculate, you want to do some protein calculations. All you need is an API. And there's a massive market for this. So common access is growing up, and previously we've over-indexed on code and the rigor of our analysis and rigor of our work. But as we go into this new stage, it takes more than that to build a business. So how do we start to realize GVM? How do we start to get the customer acquisition strategy? Right now, we're talking to 3 subnets that are going to be onboarded onto our jobs platform, and I'm very excited about that. One of them we've just finished, and we're in the middle of an MVP with it. So hopefully when we relaunch, we will be able to see this. Now, it's an opportune time that we are reviving our economics. It's going to take a bit of time to properly calibrate the job platform. The economics of that are not clear right now. So there might be a bit of calibration around that, but we get that right. But we're pretty excited. I think it's a pretty exciting avenue for Covenant Labs, and one we think will move Bittensor forward directly and move forward tremendously. So we're pretty excited for it. Cool. We're dropping an article about this later, and an article about the jobs platform for anyone that has questions. Sometimes you need to take a step back to gain perspective and understand how better you can achieve your goals. I believe our new architecture and our new incentive mechanisms places us in the best foot forward, because TAOflow is not going to suffer fools lightly. So therefore, we must be aligned to understand how we're going to capitalize on this by, first of all, not bleeding. But not bleeding doesn't mean we're just going to burn 100% miner emissions, because miners need to earn those emissions. When the emissions are earned, we can even pay them in alpha as long as we buy back with TAO. Let's call it laws of up only. The only way value is flowing is going up. Otherwise, everything is fiat-based with profits used to buy back our alpha token. Cool. We will be dropping the article shortly. If people have more questions, you can reach out on Discord, and either in the OTF channels or in our own Discord. Have a lovely evening, people. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye.